Yes, so I was just saying that, we are going to look at these pieces that you've done with 3 elements only, that are all related. So we understand that repetition is important for designs hanging together, and we also understand that on these 8x10s, it's not a lot of space, and so a lot of times less is more, because you also have to figure in the wonderful accidental textures that you're going to get from simply pulling away your stencil. So there's a lot of action going on in that very small space. And so, it makes us think, okay, how can we, get the most out of this small space? So let's take a look at what we did here, and just see what everybody practiced with this time. And it's always good to kind of check in with some of the basic elements. It doesn't mean that it's easy at all. It just means let's check in, especially since we're talking about really honing in on composition, on the picture plane, and looking at how that all holds together. So here we go. Okay, so great. This is going to be exciting to see. And all right, we'll start at the top and then work our way down. And let's see. Oh, Kate, you have something here. Oh, I see. Kate is not here yet. You know what? Let's come back to her. Let's go to Sarah. Right, Kate? Kate's not here. I don't see her yet. I think she's still putting things up. All right. So Sarah, tell us, what you learned. What was this all again? And again, the emphasis is on what are you learning? And it's not, there's no judgment here. There's, let's just see what are possible. What are the things that are possible? What have you gleaned from this exercise?
Adria, I can't see the images, but I'm on my iPhone. Is there something I have to do?
Yeah, you might want to swipe the phone image left or right. I'm not sure which one, but you're just seeing.
You. Wait a minute.
Yeah, keep going.
No, I just see all of us, but
it's there. But anyway, well, let's go back to Sarah. So tell us, what did you learn?
Well, I think I had a lot of fun doing these. And I think it was just a really nice reminder of like the beautiful, outcomes from simple overlapping shapes, repetition, complementary colors, and then just the really wonderful textures you get from the jelly plate.
This is what I was saying. Yes, these textures really, draw us in. I mean, they are really interesting, and they're absolutely part of the print. So we need to think about that as well, because it is creating texture. It's creating a not real texture, but texture nonetheless, rather. And so our eyes engaged with all of this. Again, when you're working, it's all that interesting thing about scale that I think we talked about before. How when you're working on a small scale, one's eyes gravitate to the small detail, and they are major in relationship to the picture plane, right? And it's different when you're seeing a huge giant something or other, you're standing in front of it. You might be certainly engaged by some of the text, some of the detail, but it's different. The size and meaning of those smaller areas is diminished because of the huge area. So it's all that part of that. Yeah, Sarah, you were playing with some really interesting color mixtures here. I know what your favorite color is. I feel like this beautiful green is something that I've seen characteristic of your prints. Am I wrong?
do. I mean, particularly like, I think I'm inspired by what I'm seeing around me.
Of
So
course.
springtime, it often comes up. Yeah.
It's such a one, it's like is this sap green by any chance?
I think one is sap green and then the other is, I can't remember the name of the green, but it's like a more transparent, lighter green.
Oh, a green gold?
Yeah, green
Green
gold.
gold. Okay, so yes, again, if you haven't invested in more paints, they really can be a wonderful addition to what you're working with, because yes, you can certainly make these colors, but then it's really nice to just, have this tube, that you can, immediately get this particular kind of green. Anyway, so again, that's a lot to look at. And, it's pretty dominant in the picture. So, we've limited our design elements to 3 similar kinds of shapes, right? Small, medium, and large. But wow, the texture isn't like this is an empty print. This is like a lot of overlapping, a lot of things to look at. Great. So yeah, just to see, so many different variations, and allowing the background to be light, does give you this sort of feeling of light infused into the drawing. But again, look how that's a lot. Again, there's plenty to look at within this, and yet, the larger shapes grab our attention, and you're creating lots of different sizes and shapes of triangles, rather. So the triangle is kind of a theme here, more or less. Triangles. Sorry, I have this little leftover cold, not COVID, but it's in my way. Okay.
Sarah, how did you get the texture on that?
It's part of the ghost print from, I like to use used Tyvek mailing envelopes. It's my favorite stencil. And also just other like household kind of detritus. So like coffee, the foil packages that coffee comes in and things like that. So it leaves more of a texture.
Mhm.
This one is interesting too, Sarah, because you've used a more opaque color to block out, and yet it's not completely opaque. Yeah, so a lot of, again, there's a lot of potential in keeping your elements fairly simple. It doesn't mean it's going to be a simple print.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I really enjoy doing this exercise.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah. All right, let's see.
Oh, can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
What is the color, the orangey color that you used?
I think it's a red oxide.
Yeah, okay.
One of my all-time favorite colors.
Yeah.
I love that color.
And
It
that
is such a-
combination with the greens and
Yes.
how you use the white too. The first one that we looked at,
And the white's just the white of the page, right?
right, is the feeling of it's very structural. Like,
Mhm.
and it has to do with the shapes he's used and the textures, but it's something, I don't know if there was an intention in it, but it comes across as like structural, like
Mm-hmm.
building.
Well, I definitely tend towards more organic shapes.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of making myself not do that. So to do something a little more
Yeah. Which is always,
geometric, graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about that really, really appeals to me, but it's the texture of that old looking surface.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's a structure, and how that keeps getting repeated through all the different iterations of your, of different pieces is a very nice sequence. And
Thank you.
I'm also a little
belly
intrigued,
print texture.
Yes.
It's so nice.
but I'm also intrigued of how you used the opaque at that, where I I look to try that. And it doesn't always work, but it's like looking through something,
Mhm.
you know?
Right, it gives you a nice,
Yeah. It's really interesting. Thank you.
yeah, I can see that Sarah also used that same color in
Yeah.
this one too. Yep. Okay, let's move on because we want to talk about everybody. Kate, I think this is you up here.
Oh, yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't get to me too soon.
No,
This is not
Yeah.
something I'm super proud of. I am proud that I put it up though, because I don't really like it. And it's way too much. But what I was trying to work with is I had this idea.
Mhm.
I'm sort of always an assignment behind
Uh-huh.
from last time, where I wanted to do something Ukrainian. So I had the map of the country, and I had like the child and the wheat and the houses, and I was just trying to figure out how to fit that all together.
Right,
So
right.
it's too busy, and even the colors aren't perfect, but it's an idea I'm working on.
Yeah,
I guess
that's
it-
great, Kate. And remember from last class, we talked a lot about cropping. I wonder if there,
exactly.
yeah, you have a lot
Yeah.
going on right here. There might be enough of the elements right in this section that could
Yeah.
be powerful. Yeah, so I would not
Yeah.
judge too
So
soon.
I have to play with that. I didn't have
Yeah.
time this morning. I was hoping not to work this morning and play around, but I didn't. I ran out of time.
Risky work, yeah.
Yeah. But I did,
Oops, sorry, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then this is, I just had fun doing this one, and I personally like it.
great.
It's just a little, a jelly with a little collaging on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Playing with this stuff, that's really what it's about. And, you do, the more you do, the more you learn, the more you carry over, what you've learned to the next and the next and the next. So that's great. I will say, just because we're talking about composition, I do want to
Please.
mention.
Yeah.
So this
Please.
also feels like there are two compositions here where it's really split
I
in
see.
the middle. What you could do is, to bring in some more of these, sort of rectangular pieces somewhere else, because what our eye wants to do is find repetition. It just does that. It's like, oh, I see that. Where else is it in here? It's not in here. So what happens is my eye kind of boomerangs back here. So
That's interesting, because I kind of wanted to do that, but I just everything tends to get very busy in my work, and I'm trying to do less. So I'm interested. Thank you. And I will.
yeah,
And probably
so-
not a lot, but somehow pull it
Yeah.
over.
Right, maybe even one small rectangle
Yeah.
of but darker color over here will bring your eye over here. And because it's
Yeah.
here, our eye then will travel up here and then go back out around. As it is now, I'm sort of stuck here and also then stuck here.
Yeah.
So two things could happen. You could take
Mm.
this and split it and say, oh, I've got two prints.
Yeah.
Cool. Like this one's pretty
Yeah.
complete. This one, might need a little bit more, but it also gives you, a place to start from, which is like I always say, take your question marks, and that's where the fun starts. Like it is challenging and frustrating, but guess what? That's art making. If it was
Yeah.
easy and we knew the answers to it, it really wouldn't be this, engaging activity. It would be something like oh,
Yeah.
well, la, 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 but this is where the fun comes in, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to give up on that idea I have about the map and but
Sure.
I have to go back. It's like just not there,
What you could do,
Anyway.
Kate, some interesting things you could do with maps would be to actually take a map and
Yeah.
print on your map, or make a
Oh, that's
scan
interesting.
scan a map, enlarge the part of where it's Ukraine, print it out in black and white so it's not so
Mhm.
busy in terms of color, and let that be the unders topic for your map, for your art. So there's a lot to be done simply with the map, which automatically gives you content, and that's what we're talking
Yeah.
before about content. How do you get content into your work? If You know, beyond the obvious with the abstraction, you know, the language of abstraction. But if you want to go do different things, what do you do? Let's quickly talk about these as well. All right, so this is more what this assignment was with the 3
Yeah.
circles. Great. And so I think this is much, more successful as a composition because of the repetition. You know, you find the circles, and because they're not all the same size circles, it's not boring. There's variation in the repetition. So those are 2 really strong elements of composition. Repetition yet variety.
And this was cropped from, I just showed the other one,
Okay,
which I wasn't,
yeah.
which I didn't, I thought the cropping muchly improved it,
Yes, great.
Uh.
Exactly. No, it does. Because right. Yeah, you have a lot of really exciting stuff here, and you don't need maybe everything. Exactly. So that's a great, it's a great tool. There's nothing cheating about cropping. It is time honored. People use it all the time. So great. Okay, let's see, Mary, you have a couple here to look at. So we have this is one. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you learned here? Oh, Mary, are you muted maybe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. So are you looking at the cropped one, since I still can't see what you're looking
dear,
at?
that's too bad. Gosh. No, we are looking at.
You know what? I just got back.
Okay.
I'm going to go on my iPad. If you want to, if there's
All right.
someone else to
Yeah,
put
we'll come
ahead
back
of
to
me,
you. Sure, we'll come back to
and
you.
then I'll with my iPad, I should be able to see what you're looking at.
Okay, perfect. All right, Katie, let's talk about you. So we have someone who actually used the bird image. Great. So what did you learn? What is your
Adria, go to someone else because I'm going to go on my iPad.
I am. Yeah, we're already on
Whoops, I
Katie.
can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Katie, go
So,
ahead.
I ended up just working with an image, a picture that I had
Yeah.
of a hawk, and I
Yeah.
just cut out an image. And I actually did it in some different sizes as well. So I pretty much ended up playing around with that. Maybe if you could even look at some of them I did, I'd use stencils, I'd use one. Yeah, like that. It was just kind of like playing around. What am I gonna, thinking about I started out with just using one, and then I started using a number of them. I like playing around with my stencils and stuff. I love giving texture that way. This one here, so I did a couple of like outlines, and I've had this idea, and I talked to you about it, where I wanted to try and figure out how I can print and then be able to work and do something with my pastels over them. So what I did on a couple of them, I did some, prints. I did a background, and then I did a basic print of the birds.
Yep.
And what I did is I went over everything with fine pumice gel, and which allows, it's something I've used before, which you can do when you're working with pastels, because it gives it that grit for it to hold on to.
Yeah, right.
And I did it with certain brush strokes, so it would give it a certain texture.
Yeah.
And then lay down color on top of it.
Right. So yeah, go ahead.
So that was kind of like an experiment that I played around with. I'm crazy about it. There's another one that I kind of did the same thing. This one, these other ones with just the blackbird, I used the texture, and I was at a point where, I got to do the other project, and
Yeah. Well,
I could only do so much, so I just focused on this as best.
But actually, this grouping here with the different sizes of birds, you basically did do this project. So you killed.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah. Not going to use.
Yeah.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because
It's kind of
also a terrible expression, but
yeah,
Yeah,
And
she
this
did
is-
do
but
it.
it's
So-
interesting of how it feels like, and I think it's just because of the bird that I actually cut out and used. It's like looking from above,
Yeah.
looking down. And for me,
Yeah.
you know, obviously the thing in Ukraine is so dominating, but it's like looking down through these birds that are
Yeah.
circling over this event that's happening down there.
Right.
You know, and looking down into it. And I thought of trying to do more with that feel that I could add to it, but I just, you know, I can overdo stuff. So I kept it simple.
No, and yes, and I think, you know, some of us, you know, we do have to, you know, sort of begin to figure out when is enough, you know, how big, you know, what size that you're working at can really handle it. So now, Katie, looking at these 4 that I see up here, which one do you think is the most successful in terms of the design? Excuse me, 5. 1, 2, 3. In terms of the composition, which one do you think is most successful?
Now that I look at them like this, I kind of like the one with the green background. And there's one bird that has a texture to it
This
too.
one?
Yeah. In terms of it's kind of random. It was a random.
Mhm. All right, well,
Three
here's the
different
thing.
birds, but then the other one, I like it.
Yeah.
The other one that has the 3 birds in it, I like too,
This one
because it's
here?
simpler and it's just like they're overlap, you know, they're different sizes.
Yeah.
And they're overlapping and it is random, but it says something for me, I
Yeah.
guess.
Katie?
That's fine.
Yes.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
Sure.
Katie, I think the one that you just referred to with the turquoise background is really powerful. I mean, you really have a feeling of flight and swirling. And I'm wondering, you might have mentioned it already. How did you get that blue background?
That is a big stencil that I have.
Oh, that you made?
No, I got this stencil somewhere.
Okay,
But it's just kind of like a random effect.
Yeah, that's the ghost.
yes.
And it's the ghost, it's the
Right.
ghost of it. Thank you.
Right,
It's
right,
the
right.
ghost.
So,
I think the background really adds so much to
mhm.
the flight of the birds. I love that, you know, the way it works so well together.
Me too.
So let's talk about why. So this is busy, but I do think I'm going to say that it is more successful, Katie, I think, in terms of design than the green one. Because, well, what do you guys think? So what's working so well about the kind of elements she's got back here and the birds?
Well, one's coming in from the right side, like swooping in, but really in your face. The other one, so it's almost as if you can feel the current of air
Yeah.
that they're part of. And the background, I don't know, it just has a feeling, it doesn't exactly have a feeling of sky, but it's evocative.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's there's a lot going
An
on in the
explosion.
background, but personally, I think that it's successful because it you know, in the busyness, it's there's something about the shapes that are repeated in you know, some of this kind of stuff that's going on in the wings and the feathers. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And so for me, it helps it hold together design-wise because you have really 2 elements here that are I think will really compete with each other. You know, I think the birds end up being dominant, which I think you want them to be because they're black. You know, and also because they're recognizable. And then you know the blue is kind of is very powerful as well. But because these colors are more close to each other and they're also lighter, I think you know the birds succeed in dominating. You know, that's what I would say. So I guess what I'm asking everybody to do is to also not get so stuck on the image. So we do tend to sometimes have the image of something be so carry us away, you know, to like an image of whatever it is, be so much the thing that we hold on to that we forget to look at it in terms of strong composition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
But we'll see if I can find some examples here. But I think in this one that's successful. This is very successful too for me because you've still got the dominant bird, and the background works well in terms of these marks repeating the marks in the So yes, we see the bird, but don't get too sort of psychologically and emotionally caught up in the bird so that everything else becomes aside. It's still a work of art that we want our viewer to be engrossed in looking at, so that they spend time noticing. And so it's both a bird, but it's also positive and negative. It's also how these things are arranged on the page. It's also that it's a unified composition and keeps us looking and keeps us going around and around. So both things are important.
Do you see on this other one that you were just looking at with the one bird?
Yeah.
Do you see that there are two other birds there?
Oh, now I do see.
Yeah,
I do
Oh,
see.
I hadn't seen that either.
Right,
but
right.
but you didn't see it, so it's kind
No.
of not, it's not seen. And I had thought about going over those in a way so that I don't know how I could, it's different, but having
Right.
that one strong one,
Well, what you could do is take,
it was intentionally part of the composition, but it's not coming through.
it's not coming through. You could take gray acrylic paint, Katie, and just
Yep.
paint it on top of this. So that, that's one thing you could do.
Over everything,
Just over the bird here.
the birds, the other two birds?
Yeah. And then that would be soft, and you still have this be the focal point.
Yep.
So again, it's about your composition. I think this is successful, even though it's just one, but I
Yeah.
see, that it could change, and I think you should try it because you'll never know unless you try it. Yeah. Okay, so those are really interesting lessons, to learn. I guess I want to push back with this being, that this is a lot with this
Yeah.
background. And because the background isn't necessarily telling me much about, the
Anything.
birds,
Yeah.
not as much as this is, not as much if you're telling me that you want it to be a kind of a powerful statement about, something having to do with Ukraine. This for me becomes a little confusing because I see it as, a design. I guess, I think you could crop in here and make something stronger, somehow, but it's another case of these are two really powerful designs that are not necessarily enhancing each other. And you have to be careful.
What about doing some kind of, again, like a wash, not going over the birds though, but
Yeah.
would kind of blend those shapes together to look more like a texture almost?
Will anybody else have ideas? What do you guys think?
So the white doesn't dominate the way it does.
I think it's more that the pattern is distracting.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that to me is what doesn't work about this one, as opposed to the other ones where
Yeah.
there's like Adria pointed out, like the repetition of the wing shape and the stencil that you used works, and it sort of becomes a little bit more, it makes the birds almost become a little bit more abstract, even though they're really recognizable.
Got it.
And then it's sort of the one that we were just looking at, it just becomes, I guess, a little bit more decorative,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I think loses some power that the other ones have, just in the striking simplicity. Even though they are more complicated and there's pattern in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this one also works because these shapes are dominant. They're repeated in a nice way. So, our eye kind of, looks for the thing that's similar. but so, the sky is blue. I mean, it gives us a feeling that this is a nice day, that there's nothing, if what you wanted to convey was something a little less like a pretty day, then I think some of these, say that, but your colors also speak. So, this might have been more powerful to talk about, something difficult. If it was all in black and gray, or if you were using colors that were more like black and red or yellow, where, that sort of speaks danger or distress. But,
Interesting.
otherwise, I think this is quite a nice print. But again, what was your intention? What were you trying to get at? Anyway, okay. I think
Thank
this
you.
is good to
Thank you for
chat
all
about
that.
all this. I hope that, you don't mind that I'm taking so much time, but I think, we're really getting to a lot of the heart of what people are, confronting with this. Mary, are you ready to talk about this one
Yeah.
now? Okay,
Can you ask, I just want to ask Katie,
yeah.
when you cut out did you do that with an X-Acto knife, or you have a lot of lovely
the-
detail in this?
The turquoise was the ghost of a stencil. And
No,
the
the-
birds, yes, everything all of my stencils and cutouts, I get a good sharp and take my time with the
Your
and I
X-Acto
cut it
blade.
on I cut it on a good surface too. That really does make a difference if you want to get it just the way you want to get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, dull blades are not good. You just get rid of them. Yeah, don't be afraid to use that. That's why you want to get an X-Acto blade that has a whole bunch of extra blades, so yeah, they have to be really
And
nice
a
and sharp,
surface, one of those rubbery surfaces
and a
that
rubbery
it
surface.
makes a big difference, the surface that you cut it on.
It does.
Yeah.
So Mary, this was your first one. We talked about this a little bit last night. Mary had sort of said, "What do I think?" So what have you learned? What did you discover from this whole process here?
So I uploaded two images of like the original. I wanted people to see so they could see my jumping off process.
Yes.
Mm.
Can you see them?
So here's that one, and then here's our second.
No.
one. Yeah, this is
No,
the
no.
yeah.
No.
No.
Go to the beginning of the Padlet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Not that one. There. See on the left? Yeah, okay, that one. So this is a photograph that I took, that I played with in Photoshop. This is a black and white, version that I photocopied of it. And I was starting with like the theme of Ukraine. And what I liked about this building was that you had all these lonely birds on top. There were nobody in the windows. And I was using the triangle shape as a feeling of like daggers or rupture. So I didn't like the yellow. I mean, I didn't like how it worked on top of the black and white. So that was printing the jelly on top of a photocopy, just so you can see what that does. So then I did some jelly plates. And Adria, if you could go to the color one now, the full one.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
There we go. Whoops. Yeah.
So so here I had a jelly plate, and I'm trying to remember my sequence now. Oh, so I took the magenta wasn't there. I took the jelly print with the blues and yellows and greens and printed the photograph on top of it. So I actually put the jelly in the printer. This is a lot of crazy steps. I was really experimenting.
You put the
Paper?
jelly print into the
Paper?
printer.
In the printer and printed that image that you saw before on top of it. So I printed the blue
Oh,
image,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
and then I printed
Put
the
the paper in, you put the paper that you printed in the printer
yep.
and you added the colors? No,
No, I just printed the photograph that you saw at the beginning on top of the jelly. Like I could see that it was gonna have a feeling that I wanted. And then
Not the jelly itself.
No, no,
No,
no,
the
no.
paper.
The
right.
paper.
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
and then I did that, and then I overprinted the magenta, which I don't really like. Adrian and I talked about, I don't love the color so much. I think I'll do another one with another color, but then printed on top of that because so I didn't know if the inkjet would stick
Mm-hmm.
to the jelly, but it did.
Yes.
You know, if it would stick to the acrylic. So anyway, so I just did a lot of iterations, and then I cropped it because to see what it would look like. So that was the next one.
Ah,
And I think like the feeling of the birds doesn't show up that much. So I might work with differently, but the birds were a really important part like of the original photograph. And I was going to call the piece the lonely bird or lonely birds. So that was my, and so I feel like I can really go a lot further with this, but I haven't
and
yet.
thank you for sharing that process. I think that is a great,
Really.
explanation about how we can really use, the technology that we have to take photos right now is unbelievable. And to be able to manipulate them and use them so easily in our work is terrific. Yeah, but Mary, I think this is much more successful in terms of a design that really hangs together beautifully, despite the fact that you have, a lot of color going on here. I think, our eyes still do go to the black under image.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say one more thing and then we'll let everybody else talk. If you want the birds to show up, I wonder if you could enlarge the photo a bit so that these birds become a little bit more, will you still get the idea of building and birds if you need to crop down a little bit more because this becomes bigger?
Right.
If you crop it a little bit and make it much bigger, then the bird will be able to identify these as birds. Whereas right now, I don't think we really can.
Yeah, like if you have more sky than building, then I think our eyes would go more to the birds and identify them as birds.
That's a really good point there.
The building is more dominant, right? Like that fills up the most of it. So our eyes go there.
Yes.
And I don't even really look at the birds because, you disappear. So sort of flip that 3/4 to the sky. Kind of thing.
It's also because the sky is black, which it wasn't in the original. I was trying to find the original photo, but I couldn't find it quickly. So I really wanted to show that to you. But anyway, I'll show it next week.
Well, yeah, no, it is such a really interesting question. How much of an image do we need to be able to get that idea across? Sometimes, we don't need as much of an image as we think we, do, that the viewer is, can extrapolate and see. Like I was just, holding my own hand up to the image on the screen to see what it would be like, if you crop it a little bit, just anyway. But that's
Right.
That's really, really an interesting process there, Mary.
I wanted.
What
Go ahead.
Is,
I was gonna, Ellen, go ahead, Ellen.
what I love is, first of all, I do love the colors. It might not be what, you were after, but I like it. But I think what really adds to the success is the repetition of the shape. And, the red on the diagonal and the blue on the diagonal, I think it just, and then the repetition of the windows. I think it's great.
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I love the magenta. And I actually really like the full page that you had there with, that you cropped this down from. I find the first look of it was the combination of colors. Your colors are very strong, but they work. And also could we go back to the other one, the full
Sure.
building? See, that to me looks like it's a piece of paper folded. And with that edge, it's as if the color right down that seam, the colors change there at that seam, even though I figure this is solid. Even this I find very powerful. The full page, there's something about it. It's like how with books or something, the story that it tells with the extra sides of the buildings.
Mhm.
And I will also add, I loved the top. I didn't see the birds. I didn't see them as birds, but what I saw there was a very powerful statement that came together as a place of ruin because it's been done to. Do you know what I mean? And the angles and everything, like,
Yeah, no,
do we
that's a
need
great
to
point.
know? I didn't know it was birds, but it still
Yeah.
made a difference in what came across from that is what I'm
I
saying.
agree, Katie. You know, the first time I
And
saw this
black
movie too,
sky is
Yeah.
very powerful against it.
Yeah.
right, and I saw this as something frayed, frayed
Yeah.
edges
Right.
really spoke right away of something, something difficult.
Yeah.
So-
Worn.
Yeah,
I agree
exactly.
with Katie. I like the full, but I was wondering if actually it crops so that the bottom of the magenta triangle, I kind of would like it going through. I don't
And
know.
like crop
Right.
it so it doesn't, the point's not there
Yeah.
standing with the blue
Yeah.
with colors below it. Yeah.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
the other ones do seem like they do go off and just the directions of everything in that crazy way, but it works. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, great, Mary, thank you. This was a very interesting.
I wanted to add something technical just for us to think about, which is it was important to me in this process to use my own photograph, but of course people don't know that it was my photograph. And so, if I use something from a magazine or like nobody would know the difference. And so I just, I seem to have like an attached feeling, like it's using my own photograph makes it feel more integrated for me.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
has more meaning. And that comes across. Oh, we might not know it's yours. There's something there because it gives extra meaning for you and it led you to what you ended up doing with it,
Yeah, yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's very, very good.
Yeah, thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Mary. All right, Mary Ellen, let's
you.
see. You did, yeah,
So some of mine are from previous previous assignments.
okay, yeah,
This one here is grasses,
yeah,
and we did botanical prints weeks ago,
uh-huh,
but at the time I did not have any grass.
uh-huh.
So I was playing with that this week,
Great,
and I did many of them, and I think this is the most successful because the gold and the black mixed together.
yes, yeah. And, in terms of what we were saying with composition, again, because you're using similar things here, you have a natural, you don't have to fight with it to make it really work compositionally. What we enjoy about it are the negative spaces in here and the repetition of the sort of slender, curved lines throughout it. So we will follow the curves, we'll follow the edges, and we will enjoy the negative spaces. Yeah, great, good. And and then you have a couple others that.
I have a lot of others.
Okay, a lot of them. All right, well, just tell us which ones you think would be most interesting to look at then.
So last week in class, the ones I posted were rectangular shapes,
Yeah,
and I didn't like either of them
yeah,
because I prefer the more circular
Yep.
shapes.
yep,
And the circular shapes you find in nature, you don't find rectangular shapes in nature. So I had, from weeks ago, we did elastic
Yeah,
prints.
yeah. All right, rubber band.
And I took those and had 3 sizes, the small, the medium, and the large,
Yeah,
and cut out the shapes to make a stencil. So all the repeating elements you see are from the elastic stencils. there.
yeah, yes.
And I did
exactly.
several, these all, I believe, started out being ghost prints from, some
Yes.
prior week
Right,
that I used as the base and then printed the different colors over them. And I also used the mesh fabric
yeah.
to create some of the texture there.
Mm.
I'm not happy with any of them, except
Yes.
for the grasses.
So, talking about composition on this one, yes, you have unified it very, very well. What I'm wondering is, so, and I would say this, that you do sometimes have it, and I'm just talking about sometimes I've seen a sort of overall. Now, when we look at it this way, here is your your focus.
Mhm.
And that is really good. And I think I'm enjoying seeing that, because then, my eye goes right here. Do you guys all agree? When you look at it this way, your eye goes here
Yeah.
because of the lightness of it, right? We tend to focus right over here. And then our eye does sort of get over here. The question is it stronger if we don't have this bottom? I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying these are all interesting questions, because then, the focal point here ends up being a little bit more strong. This one, I think I'm drawn to the most because of the fact that there's a strong variation within the repetition and a very strong focal point here.
Mhm.
This one, there's a less strong focal point, and it almost feels like, unless this is your intention, that it could use one more thing that would draw our attention to it, that would be of a similar kind of shape, but maybe something much stronger. So
I think with that one, putting the final layer over it
yes,
kind of destroyed it.
well, or
Not this one,
this
the other
isn't
one.
done yet. This maybe
Yeah.
just needs one more. Yes, because you've got lovely texture and interest, and and it's interesting. It does hold together, even though there's a lot going on. But I think one more strong element, might be the thing that kind of brings it,
I like
snaps
what
it.
Sarah did was putting the opaque paint over
Yes,
some of them, and I
yes,
think that might help some of
Yes.
these.
yeah, that could be it. Yeah.
But you're right, I do tend to like cover the page.
There's there's an overall, exactly. And so one thing, like this doesn't have it, of course. But this one really, you've managed to not have that. These are a little, there's a way in which they're just almost asking for one more focal point, a strength that isn't different, but is just kind of repeating, but in a slightly different way. So that would be something to think about too. And Mary Ellen, here you have again, and there's an overall quality. There's a tendency now, these are all the same shape. Again, that could be a thing. Like I think I showed you guys last week, some artists who just use a kind of an overall pattern and that's their intention. If it isn't, then this maybe requires one more thing to break up the repetition. So we have repetition, but not variety yet.
Mhm.
Just another way to think
Like
about it.
what? What would you add to that?
Pour some red on top. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
not-
that's a good question. I mean, and it's tricky because I have an idea. I'm going to just say this. One thing I would say is you don't probably want to invite one more design element because you got a lot going on. This is pretty strong too. The background is strong.
I think the
But
best part
might-
about this is the background.
Love the
Well,
background.
yeah. But one thing you could do,
Perfect background for this.
yeah. But here's one thing she could do, Marianne, what you could do is take this same image here and enlarge it you know, and then print it in, you know, another color, so that you'd have a large fish or maybe
Uh-huh.
one or two larger fishes overlapping too, because now these don't overlap. There's
Right.
now, and this is where you get kind of the wallpaper syndrome, which you might want real, I'm nothing against, I love wallpaper. I do, but it just,
Mhm.
but there's a sameness about it that you may not want for your own work. There may be a time when you do want it, time you don't. You take this, maybe print it in white, maybe print it in, you know, one more, maybe a violet, or picking up one of these colors where you're not introducing something completely different, but it's a larger scale image overlapping, you know, some of these things, and that would do it.
Mhm.
Could do it. Yeah.
Okay.
So how would you do that? Like, would you have to cover up the rest of the paper to get the white fish, or how would you get a white
exactly
fish on
right.
top of?
That's right. You're right,
Or-
Kate, because that's how Mary Ellen got the black. There was
No, that's
no.
a stamp.
Oh, a stamp. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
No,
but
you
I
know
could
what
make
you
a bigger
can do?
stamp.
No, what you could do, this is what I would do, is, because I fiddled around with all the reverse parts of when you do a cutout, is you make a cutout of this, or you find a way to do it. So you just place it where you want it. And then I take those round spongy stamps and I dab it on. It looks like it's printed. You'd have to do this, so, but you could do this because it's connected. But yeah, you'd
You know what,
look,
let
you
me,
know what I
let me
mean?
stop the share here. Actually, I know what you're saying, Katie, but I think let me
This
just
might-
draw this out here, because
Yeah.
this is the stuff that is really, you know, it's really hard to describe this. So let me just say it here. So, but I think it would involve your computer a bit, but so everybody, here's Mary Ellen's stamp, right? That, you know, so there's a stamp, boom, 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 you know, which I had black ink on, you know, the
Oh.
fish, whatever, right? You know,
Hello?
yes,
Mary, you need to mute yourself.
okay, there we go. Okay, so everybody see this? Okay, so this is our stamp shape, right? Whatever. So this is the black, she's got a stamp. Take your stamp, put it on a clean sheet of paper, right? To either take a photo of it or scan it into your computer, make it larger, and then cut this out. So now you have, right, this much bigger. Okay, so now we're going to cut this shape out, right? And this, you know, whatever, this isn't going to work, because if you cut this shape out, you're also going to cut that shape out. But anyway, whatever it is.
There's a way of doing it that you can.
Yeah.
It's
I've done
connected.
that with other things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this is cut out, and Kate, so then she has a piece of paper. You're right. So suppose this is a
big
piece
piece
of
of
paper. Yeah. And then, you know, here you have, you know, this is cut out. She covers her plate. That was, and maybe it's the green or the turquoise on your jelly, right? So here's my jelly. It's got a color on it, right? My piece of paper is here. And then I print it on my paper. And you know, I did show you how you can re-register. It's a little bit of a tricky thing, but I do have that. We can look at it again. But if you re-register, you can get everything lined up. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. This has got poked holes in it. This is yeah. But if you just use if you just use the stamp and just, you know, take a photograph of it and put it in the computer and enlarge it, then that's what you have. So, you know, for example.
Adrian, would you put the new fish going the opposite direction?
Not
leave it-
necessarily,
That's a
because
good
again,
question.
that's a lot. It's just a lot, Mary Ellen. You have to, that's a tricky thing, because you know, you've got a lot going on. This is a case where I think I would say to you,
Less is more.
less is more. And maybe, you know, maybe this part of your, maybe this is it. This is all you need. It's kind of nice if you did take a section of this and crop it where some of the fish are, well, like here, where they're going right off the page. And actually, if you do that, then this has less of the feeling when you crop it of being, needing one more thing, But if you're talking about the whole thing, then maybe one or two, maybe more fishes that overlap with the same sort of, maybe way bigger, sort of overlapping one, and then maybe one more here. But this is the tricky business. And sometimes it's just like, okay, well, I learned a lot from doing that. I'm going to do another one. And this time I'm going to be aware of, the fact that I need a little bit more focal point. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, these are all really interesting questions, the problems to solve. That's what art making is. It's problem solving, maybe more than anything else. All right, and Ellen did send us some pieces to look at. Ellen, you're on here. Here we go. Great. And so tell us what you have learned from your expedition.
This was the first one I did.
Mhm.
And actually, I think it's probably the most successful. I
Uh-huh.
didn't think it was at the time, but I like the repetition of the shapes. The thing that I really felt like I didn't learn so much was because it just was, I just guessed, I just put it down,
Yeah.
I didn't have a method really. I mean, I was just using two colors and the white of the paper and just kind of tried to make it interesting, but not really knowing what I'm doing.
Yes. It's really kind of a little leap of faith, and that's what we love or hate about printmaking. It's true. Yeah.
So this one I put up because I did not think it worked at all. So I didn't mean to transfer, but when I cut up shapes, I used a magazine. So it was very funny because I hadn't planned on it. So then I really liked the way it looked.
I know. This is so funny because I am going to show you guys how to do this today. So do you see what's happening here? Ellen has inadvertently transferred a photograph from a magazine. Not in two colors. She just transferred one, just color. Yeah. But that's, so you know what, Ellen, how would you fix this in terms of composition to make it stronger? What would you do?
I don't really even know. I mean, it just seems so haphazard. There's no rhyme or reason for anything. I don't.
Ellen, I think this would be an awesome base for a collage, like to do other mono printed papers, like maybe use some thinner papers.
Mm.
Well,
play around with the composition on top of it, cutting out different shapes.
That's what I did, which is the next one.
Oh, good. I just want to say too, before we do that.
Well, I don't like it, but that's what I did.
But just going back to our skill set and sort of repertoire of how to, what to do with something when it needs something. What else could Ellen do here to make
I
it
have
stronger?
some ideas.
Yeah.
You could overprint it, I mean, using those shapes again, but with either a really, solid black.
Yes.
Or a bronze.
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Oh, metallic.
Yes.
Something
The
metallic.
background up.
Or she could crop it.
Or she could crop.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. That was what I was hoping.
That's what I was looking at.
There's nothing wrong.
Crop
with
off
this
that
right
whole
here,
right section.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But this is, Ellen, rather than feeling daunted by this, I would say, okay, here's a great thing for me to play with here, and to make it work, because that's number one, challenging, and number two, where you learn a lot. But you're right, and Mary's idea here, yes, if you use solid black, you would see these colors just become so much richer because it'd be in contrast of a very solid black color. They wouldn't seem so wishy-washy gray. They would really, I think be stunning. So that is something to think about. And also, you're right, the bronze iridescent colors, bronze and copper too. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. That's also a really great way to get opacity and also introduce a really interesting element. But so you have a lot of possibilities there, Ellen.
Are you saying that that was the collage I made from that?
Yes, right. I see that. But you were saying what?
Whoa.
Oh,
Good.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think you did a lot of really good work on this one too, to make it stronger.
It's so ugly. Oh, God.
No, right.
I don't
really?
see that. I'm still seeing the original.
Really?
ah.
Ah.
That happened to me earlier today too, that I wasn't seeing what you were showing.
Why? Wow, how about now?
No,
That's weird.
That is weird.
I'm sorry. I think maybe it has to do with the email. Well,
Ellen, the stripes really make it pop. It's like, wow.
It's the start of something. It's a very interesting another element that you've added to it that
Yes.
is quite interesting.
yeah. So, all right. Well, Mary Ellen, are you able to see them here?
no, I don't see them. Well, that's black grayed out, so I can't see them behind.
Oh,
You know, that's
Okay.
Oh,
happened.
there I see it now.
all right. How about now? Yeah.
Now I see it, yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, but this is interesting, and I think a couple of things to note here. The written text, you can choose to read it or not. What happens is that we see it as texture. And so what's nice is that we see texture here and the texture is repeated here and here. So that is a nice thing because it unifies this. You've got these shapes that are unifying over here and here and here. And I'm happy that you used some dark, color, because I think that it also benefit from some more of this dark. But I think you've resolved it to make a much more interesting composition by the addition of these things. Yeah. Well, great. So did we look at everybody? Did we talk about everybody here? Was there anybody that I missed? No, good. Okay. Well, great, everybody. So that was really, really interesting to see you all playing with these and working with them. And this is art making. It's the, maybe almost getting it. And I'm hoping that by talking all this through, that the things are striking you more, you have a better understanding. What I wanted to do just really briefly, and then what I want to do is to actually introduce to you this method of transferring from images from the magazine, because it's not difficult and it's really kind of a fun thing to add. But again, and I'll talk more about this too. All of these cute techniques, all of these fancy things that we can do are not meaningful unless you are able to work with them in a meaningful way that you are either using it for content or using it to create a stronger composition. So that's why I feel like you could watch a lot of these. There's so many fabulous actually videos on technique in jelly plate printing. There's like a zillion. But it just is a technique unless you can figure out how to use it in your own work for your own purposes. So that's what I always say, these fancy techniques they're very seductive, but how are you going to use them to make strong artwork? So just to go back to the email that I sent you last week about these compositions. See if I can quickly put my fingers on it. Oh, okay, let's see here. Here we go. Yeah, so I had sort of picked a little bit randomly a variety of artists' work playing with different kind, with a focus on creating a cohesive composition. Just really briefly, let's look at this Matisse, and what is it that you think holds it together, or do you not think that it holds together?
I think the orange frame around 3 sides
Yeah.
helps to hold it together.
Oh, that's very interesting.
You have the repeating colors of the red and then the yellow and the blue and then the black and all different, well, the black isn't repeated, but you have it in all different shapes along the kind of the borders.
Yes. So even though this is not exactly the same, they are
Yeah.
similar. And I think you have that same thing of small, medium, large. So it's a repetition, but
Yeah.
variety,
Yes.
right? And even
Yes.
in this one, that's that same kind of shape, but repetition and variety.
And then you
Yeah.
have it in the squares too.
Exactly.
The blue and the white and the black squares. And then even the green.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a rep-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good point. I didn't even see that.
Oh,
That's
and
right.
the framing, I'm realizing, is also that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I saw is
Yeah.
this repeat of the square rectangle that is just exquisite. And I look at the colors. I mean, his colors are just amazing, but the effect, imagine if those little squares, that pattern down was not in black,
Yeah.
how powerful that black is that really
Yeah.
pulls it together.
Yeah, that's right. In
Um,
fact, you can take your hand and sort of
Black
pop
it
it
out.
so that you don't see any
Yeah,
black.
and
No,
it's boring.
yeah,
It's yeah.
yeah, it's so much a part of the
And
story. And the perspective of those angles coming in of the blue and the
Yeah.
white.
right.
Well,
Like-
so the black squares going off the edge of the paper and
Off
on
the
a diagonal.
Yeah.
Yes, and these are all on diagonals too. So we know that creates a sense
Squiggly.
of
Yeah,
excitement or kind of off balance. So that always makes a lively, not static kind of a composition, right? All right, great. And then
it's
this
amazing
one
because it could be seen as so busy,
yes,
but it's
very busy.
not.
Yeah.
It's very busy.
But it comes as one whole effective. The yellow at the bottom and the squiggle is that yellow of the rectangle at the bottom going up and off. It's like, but it's
Yes.
beautiful.
It's
Wow.
really, a puzzle, isn't it? Where and these overlapping shapes really hold
Oh,
it
yeah.
too. Yeah, it's quite
And the colors too, the use of the specific colors and where they are placed.
so he's got a whole bunch of these in his series called Jazz, which are really, really fun to look at. So this is Monet, and even in these paintings, we see, how composition is so important to hold all together because there's a lot of little brush strokes here. And when you get up close to these paintings, they just simply dissolve into zillions of little brush marks, but then you stand back and then you see the whole composition. And what do you see unifying all of this stuff here? The focal point is clearly right here, right? And the contrast is so important to making this whole thing hang together, right? Anything else you notice about this or want to make a reference to here about composition?
It's almost like the exercise of taking a shape and putting it, kind of repeating it, or even if it's just one shape, like a silhouette,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's like the building is a silhouette that's almost been cut out, put on top of
Yes.
a background.
Yes.
And it's also the reflections are part of that shape. It's like a
Yes.
shape there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And if you kind of squint
absolutely.
your eyes and look at it, it's just that shape.
Yeah. That's right.
But
Yeah.
it's real It's a real set of buildings and it's a real sky in the back with this, the background. And I was thinking like, even like that bird, that one bird that I had
Yeah,
in that background, it's
Yeah.
kind of
yeah.
the same principle in a way, although it's so much more.
Oh, no, but it is. And, you know, it's
I think
very
also,
powerful.
Positive, negative,
That's
and
right.
using for design.
Exactly.
I think also this, one of the really important things here is that the space, like the arrangement on the page of the focal point, right? Like how it is
Mm.
touching one edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it is kind of, because it is very centered in some ways, but it's, you know, that throws it off just enough to make it look more real.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so. The color palette, I mean, it looks so
Yeah.
muted,
Oh.
and yet he manages to
Yeah.
create this amazing feeling of light. But the palette is so grayish almost, but it's not.
I know. Yeah. If you ever,
You enlarge that, Adria?
I can't because it's my email. I can try to find it.
No, don't worry.
Yeah. Another
The
time.
reason I'm asking is
Yeah.
in the center, kind of in the lower quadrant, there seems to be like, right there seems
Yeah.
to be like a boat or something.
Yes, there is. There is absolutely a
And then
motor.
again, a little bit over to the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah, he's a master of color. I mean, these are such close colors, but you see it, you know, it's just, I mean, this is the, my God, Monet was such the master of color and light, really, really. I think what's interesting too is that, you know, the fact that this stops here
Yeah.
gives us a feeling of, we can go behind this
Yes.
building. So it's both a, you know, wonderfully interesting flat design, you know, where this is like here and there, but then you go all the way around this building. You're absolutely convinced there's the other side of it, you know?
Well,
And
especially because you see that light coming
Yeah.
through the edge there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You know, I remember going to someone's a demonstration of someone was doing a landscape or a scene, and he said something like, you know, always create an exit route for the eye.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
there, my eye is right there, and I want to go around that building, and I want to go see that sky, and it is there, and I'm going, you know, like that's a very powerful design element for my
Yes,
in this.
exactly. And I do something, it's,
Just
you know,
gently just brings me right around in the water,
Yeah.
and then going behind, and then there's that incredible, it is the atmospheric, you know, the colors and the combination, and I don't know, just really has an amazing
it's
feel.
masterful. I mean, it really is. And then let's see, let's see what the other thing is. Edgar Degas. I know some of you had trouble opening this, but I thought this was, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
I couldn't open the Matisse one.
The Matisse one and not this one, are you sure?
Yeah, I could open,
Oh.
I eventually got to
Oh.
open this one, but I couldn't open the Matisse
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry. I have no idea why. That's so bizarre. Well, so this is Edgar Degas, you know, who's really one of my most favorite artists too. And both of them, Degas and Monet, I mean, you can learn so much about the way they use color and also composition. They're just incredible designers as well. But, you know, how does all of this stuff hang together? You know, what is he doing here where our eye travels, remember, our eye wants to travel contour, right? So we're going to follow the line. We're going to follow all this, you know, just kind of notice how you look, you know, you follow up here and, you know, you just keep traveling
Such
and
beautiful
through this whole
negative.
thing.
Look at the repetition of shape of the bathtub and the back of the chair.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
And
look
the
at that.
hand on like the bathtub wouldn't be part of it if the hand wasn't resting on the edge of the tub,
Yes.
you know?
It's resting on the chair, not the tub.
Oh, okay.
Those here.
Well,
But yeah, you're right. Look at that. This sort of semicircle, you know, the semicircle, the semicircle, the semicircle. I mean, yes. So this is just like
And the
it's just
colors all
magic.
repeat too.
And the colors all repeat exactly. You see, oh, there's the red, and then I see the red here. So all the things that we're talking about, repetition and, contours. What's the focal point? What do you think? What is your eye drawn to?
Back
The hand on the back of the chair.
Ah, interesting.
or the back for
The
me.
top of her back.
Yeah, the V in the back and the shoulder area, that's for
Yeah,
me.
I mean, it could be different for people. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I think maybe here, I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that-
but at any rate,
Back
there
of
may
the
be several focal points here, but
Yeah.
it's just masterful. Notice shapes going off the page.
Mm,
A lot
every-
of people,
Every shape goes off the
every
page.
every shape goes off the page. It
yeah.
does. Yeah. Yeah, really, really amazing.
Mm.
And then I sent you a couple more here in this next one. Yes, because
I
Katie
say one?
said, I want to see something more contemporary.
Well, Adria, can I just say something
Oh,
about
Please, yeah.
the Degas? I mean,
yeah.
when I was looking at it, it also like, I think in terms of like something abstract,
Yeah.
looking at it, like if you were to just like try and paint those as shapes and not to be anything,
Yes,
like, I think it teaches you also so much about composition. Like that would make a beautiful abstract
oh
work.
my gosh, it would.
Just look at like the variety of marks and the variety of sizes of shapes and,
Yeah.
what's going off the edge. Like, I don't know, I guess sometimes I forget, the importance of just all of the negative shapes in, these classical pieces of
Yes.
work that I think of like, oh yes, of course. But, it's all the same, it's the
Yes,
same.
it is.
Mm.
I mean, this is so important. I mean, this is so key, what you're saying right now, Sarah, and it's so true, is that, if you start to see like an artist, what happens is that you start to be very conscious of negative and positive space or background, foreground, and like how they are interlinked and inseparable. Like one cannot exist without the other. Like you can't draw this arm correctly unless the background is drawn correctly because it affects the look of the arm. So, this whole deal of positive, negative is so key. And if you can take away this one thing from this class, it would be to start looking at your world both in positive and negative terms. Foreground, background is much better to actually say that. It so benefits you. However, whatever you do in your art making, it is like the basic thing. Like design is so important. And that's why people say, oh, representation was also abstract, right? Because you can turn this upside down and, it's still about shapes interconnecting. It's still the same thing.
Right. Or like, how do you paint an ear?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's all shapes and
It's all
shapes and, like you can't,
Yeah.
you almost have to think abstractly to do that.
That's exactly. And what we were saying before about don't get so carried away by the sort of sentimentality of the content. Like
Right.
try to, and this is another thing that I think artists sort of learn after you've been doing it for a while is you learn to be a little bit dispassionate. Yeah, like, oh yeah, it's about, this, but it's also everything else that's in this picture plane. It's also light and dark and positive, negative, and all the repetition and form and structure and contours and all that stuff. It has to be all about that as well as the content. Because if it isn't about those other things, then the content is not going to interest you much and nobody's going to look at it. Or I don't mean that, but I mean, it's going to be less after a while, it'll get old or it won't draw your attention for the fact that it doesn't have those other elements to keeping you engaged. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then then I brought three new people in that you may or may not know about. Chabalalat Self, who is a wonderful young artist who had a show at the ICA about a year and a half ago. And This is a really big painting, a really big, well, it's actually kind of a collage of fabric on a piece of canvas. And look, printmaking. These are all monochrome.
Yeah.
You know, they're probably done with some way of doing it, cut, you know, maybe a styrofoam cut or whatever. But I think here she's abstracting the form, but it's positive and negative, you know, how this, the scale of the shape in relationship to the outer, you know, where this is really about the person. This is about this figure. There's no question. The figure is front and center. It takes up the most space on the canvas. It's about this person. And I just, you know, I'm really, though it's not super representational, it's definitely a figure standing, you know, sitting in this area and it's about negative, positive, and it's about color. So yeah, what do you guys think about this?
Oh, it's fun.
Really fun, really interesting. Repetition, right? Here, Tide bottle, reds, you know, greens, dark.
Look at the hand underneath the leg. You can't
Yeah.
quite
Oh,
Yeah, I love that.
wow.
connect it to the arm.
And the fingers repeat, you know, these shapes are repeated in here, you know, in
Yeah.
here and here. So here, you know, so that your eye picks up, repeats, you know, sees it again and again.
What is the name of the artist?
Her name is Shabalala Self, and I will write it in our chat if I can find the chat. It's where's the chat? Oh shoot.
I missed where you said the hand repeats. So after you do,
Well, I mean the finger shapes repeat in these kind of skinny, small little areas here. So I like, you
okay.
know, in bigger or less big
Yeah.
areas. But yeah, I just feel like even in the letters, you see that same kind of
Right. Or even emblem.
yes. So
Yeah.
it's happened. I'll write it when we are done here. I can't find the
Why do you think he used, is it a he or she?
she.
Oh, she used tide.
Yeah.
Why do you think she used tide? What's the
Good
meaning?
question. Good question. Why do you think?
Well, clean. I mean, you think tide, you think clean. You think white, you think white. I
It
don't
also
know.
might be because it's widely available worldwide.
Interesting.
It could just be like
I
a tomato soup can with like Andy Warhol.
Yeah, she could be making a little sly reference to, you know, art history here. That's such an
Right.
interesting, but you know what? I never stopped to question why tide. I have no idea. She does typically do a lot of sort of people in various places and situations. And so I feel like this guy is at the grocery store looking at tide, you know, but why is the tide? I don't know why the tide is on his back, like a racing team. I have no idea.
Right. Oh, sponsor.
Question.
Tide
Sponsoring.
could be sponsoring the racing team.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I assumed, but
That's
I
so
mean,
funny.
it just seems so, but why? Because anybody could, you know, why pick that?
that's hilarious. I have no
Maybe
idea.
it's a real thing, who knows?
I don't know. Okay, so this is Bridget Riley, and she
Yeah.
is an artist who is known for optical art. And she plays with our perceptions. Like, whoa, this is hypnotic.
Yeah,
And you know, look what you can do with with just lines and colors. There's nothing technological going on here, but you know, your own brain and your own vision, look at this thing and kind of getting like, you know, a hypnotic effect.
Is she used acrylic and just taping?
Yeah, I think so. She must
Wow.
blind her when she's doing it. In fact, I have a hard time even looking at this right
Oh.
now. I have to go.
me
But
too. It's like I can't get too close.
yeah, it's
Colors are amazing though. I
Yeah.
love those colors.
But so here's somebody who's using like well, it's kind of interesting because this one isn't smack in the middle, but it might as
Yeah.
well be, you know, some of the things they tell you not to do in art school is never make something smack in the middle because it'll be boring. But I mean, here's an artist, you know, that's why I say I don't believe in these rules. I think, you know, you need to use them for when they make sense to you, but then not use them if what you're trying to do is going to be against the rule, because this is a very effective hypnotic use of the materials. You know, she really wants us to feel this way, and she really wants us to have this illusion happening. And this is Saul LeWitt, who's got if you ever go to Mass MoCA, he's got rooms and rooms and rooms full of really amazing painting. This is a lot of his work is very large. A lot of his work, he does use these complementary colors that kind of create a vibrating sense. You know, again, playing with our perception. And, you know, how is he using design here? Why is this successful or not successful? You know, what is he trying to do here that, you know, is, in fact, this could very well be a jelly print, because, you know, a lot of times we tend to find, you know, Mary Ellen, this could be one of yours.
I know, yeah. If it was rounder shapes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
But one thing that's interesting to me in this is that although it's so busy and it
Yeah.
feels so random on the one hand,
yeah,
when you look at it, they're like, it's very sectional. It's
yes,
like the patterns are very sectional.
yes, yes, yes.
And I feel like in a way that's what makes it work
Yeah.
so well, because there's almost lines in the patterns.
You're right. It's as if,
And the shapes repeat in
That's right.
different sizes.
yes, well, that's right. So it certainly hangs together. There's no question about it. Does it have a focal point?
The whole thing.
Jane?
I know. It doesn't really have a focal point, you know?
No,
It
it just
doesn't.
travels around. Your eye just naturally keeps traveling around.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of this. It's like a cutout. It's really is like
Yeah.
a cutout.
I
Yeah.
think we're at the center.
Yeah, I go to the center too,
Yeah.
Ellen. I was hesitant to say that, but yes, I go to the center too.
Or maybe this area where
Not
it's
me.
bigger shapes.
Yes,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
but it's certainly subtle, and he's not banging you over the head with it. Yeah.
It's
so
very organic. It's like that belongs in, that's existing in nature somewhere. I don't know. It's roots of a tree or I don't know what, but there's something
And
about that.
brambles someplace.
Yeah,
right. And so, you know, of course, we're
side out
looking at
large intestines.
what you know, we're looking at artists' work, you know, that they've put out there after many, you know, we see just the tip of the iceberg of what artists create, really. And so, you know, you have to think that this is part of a series where he was really playing with perception. He likes to do that a lot. He really, you know, similar to Bridget Riley, he also enjoys, not to the same extent, but to some extent, some of his work does play with perception. And so I've got to think that he's, you know, intent on, you know, seeing what happens when, you know, you do this kind of thing. So he's, you know, less interested maybe in, you know, plain old, you know, picture plane, positive and negative, and more interested, like, you know, for his day. I mean, Monet was extremely interested in the way colors interacted and the way little dots of color put together create another color. If you got closer, there's orange in here, there's yellow, there's all these colors in here too. So of his day, he was really an optical artist. But, you know, we've come, of course, in the 20th century, in the 21st, you know, much further along, or, you know, just looking more different, in a different way at color and perception, you know, having that this bit was such a huge thing. So anyway, artists are always playing with it in their own ways. Okay, well, that, you know, I hope that this was enlightening, you know, and again, we're really focusing, as you had want me to do, you know, with this whole thing, understanding composition and how, yes, you know, there are ways in which you can, you know, keep the viewer engaged, but there's also ways in which you can use composition to really provide, enhance your content, make it very clear what you're trying to communicate. Just depends on, what you're trying to say with your work.
Mm.
And at this point where we're still new, some of us are very new to art making, some of us are new to jelly plate printing, or some of us are, experimenting with what we can do. We may not be ready to kind of make a statement about what we want to say with our composition. We don't know yet. So we're still.
Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking,
No.
I don't know.
Of course, we don't know, but as you're working, you can ask yourself always this question, okay,
Yeah.
what is my composition doing? What can I do with the composition to make my engagement with it stronger? Or what, that someone might enjoy looking at it. Do I need everything? Is there anything too much in here? What could I get away? What could I lose? What do I need more of? These are all things that, at this early stage, you're all playing, you're all enjoy that stage and say, wow, what freedom. I can really go so many different ways. So it's just, the journey is long and hopefully engaging and fun and yes, frustrating because it may be sometimes hard to know what you really want or how to get what you really want. But if you do play with it enough, you are going to get somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, we don't have a lot of time. Can I show you one last video that you might find this interesting? And it goes back to what Ellen accidentally did. She made a transfer on her plate. So I was playing around on YouTube today, and actually I did find, I hope you don't think this is cheating. I didn't make my own video, but this just does it very, very well, right? This idea of transferring from a magazine. So I have known about this. I learned it from a student, and this is a technique that's out there that's fun to play with, but it relies on finding the right kind of magazine image to use, which is like slick paper of, say, for example, some of the fashion magazines that are out there. It won't work very well with just a, like newspaper doesn't transfer. What it is you have nice thick ink on a slick paper. So what happens is the ink that we're using just ends up sticking to the photographic image. So knowing that, let's look at this image, let's look at this video, and you can, and we'll sort of try to dissect it. So, okay, here. Yeah, here we go. So what I did was I stopped the video. I found the place in the video where she just starts showing you how to do this. Now, let me say this. In this particular exercise, you don't want to use open acrylic paints because they don't do the transfer very well. I found that it's much better to use either heavy body or the fluid non-extendable paint. So those of you who have some of that stuff, you're in luck. Kate might need to buy some. May not. I don't know. Did I give you some that didn't have any in it? Kate's my neighbor.
No,
so I was able
but
to.
my daughter has some. I've been
Okay, great.
Using a lot of my daughter's stuff. She might
Okay,
have
great.
some floating around.
So yes, this is one time when you don't want to use open paint because it just doesn't work very well. So let's take it from here. And I actually have the sound, I had the sound off on this video because I think, we're going to be able to get more out of it by looking at it without the sound. So we're going to watch her do what she does here. And then I'm going to be able to talk to you a little bit more about what she's got going. So she's trying to decide what color to use. All right. So this is a craft paint. Heaven forfend. Shockingly, she's not using golden, but anyway, so you can use any old paint here. And this is actually the fluid, which I also found works better than the heavy body. So as you can see, she's rolling up the ink here. Oh, can you guys mute yourselves? We're getting a little feedback here. Okay, good. Okay, so she put a lot of paint on there. She's now getting rid of a lot of the paint. All right, it was a bit too much. And that's the other key thing. This works best with not a lot of paint on the surface. So as you can see now, she's just rolling up and getting rid of some of the extra paint. Yeah. And just kind of continuing to make it as uniform a surface as she can by just rolling it out, getting rid of. So it's a super thin overall paint. All right, now see like a Vogue magazine thingy or whatever, she's laying it down on top of the paint. It's that nice slick paper. It's just, you know, and spending some time getting a really good impression, making sure that all the areas are sticking. And look at that. So the slick paper took away the ink and she's left with the ink sticking on where there were letters. Okay, and so you can also see that sticking here to some of the other areas of her jelly. So it looks like she's drying it off a little tiny bit. I'm not sure why she is doing that. I guess my thought would be not to do that, but we'll see. Maybe this is a slightly different process. But at any rate, that if you printed, you would get that. Oh, I think I know what she's going to do now. Oh, interesting. I think she's going to go now back over the top of it with another color. Oh, let's watch this. This is interesting. Let's see what she does here. Oops, sorry, ick. Go away. Okay. All right, does everybody see what she just did there? So she dried off that first coat. This is what Mary Ellen has been talking about all this time. So you take another color, let's watch what she's doing here, and then applying it on the top. So she's actually going to have a background of yellow. And she looks like she's doing the same thing where she is lifting off a lot of the extra. So I'm curious here. Actually, I didn't watch this whole thing to the end, but I noticed that she was just showing how to, okay, now she's going to print it.
Very crafty paper.
Very crafty paper. Oh my goodness.
So that'll all clean off the plate, okay? And the
Well, yeah, so you're going to see she's going to pull everything off. All right, drama, drum rolls, and look at
wow. Oh wow.
that, everybody. Okay, so look at that. Her photograph is pretty darn good, and she gets very good impressions from the dark areas on the image. So a good high contrast image on really good slick paper. The paint, oh boy, if we figure this out, the paint, oh boy, sticks to the areas where she had really dark color, but came off from the other areas. And then she put down, then she let that dry so that when she put her other color on top and spread it, it gave her a background. So that's really pretty interesting. But the question that I always have, again, this is a really cool technique, but what do you do with it? My question is yes. So what? Now, you know, there's not a lot that you can do with this image, you know, aside from, you know, it's going to be what it is. And I think if you were making, you know, your art about maybe, you know, a feminist statement about, you know, the slick fashion industry, then that would be an appropriate use of this image. Otherwise, maybe not, except that you could then, you know, print this on here and then use this stuff for collage material. You know, you could certainly cut this up and use it. What's really nice though, is that you're going to get the text reading not backwards the way it would otherwise, but right side, you know, printing right side up. So there you go. I mean, that's a pretty interesting, you know, the new technique that I offer to you as something else for your repertoire. I would say that if you'd like to use this today to play with it, absolutely, go for it, and also keep it in mind. If, you know, not all of us happen to have these kinds of magazines, you may have something like this around, you may not. So if you want to try this, you really, the key here is getting the right kind of, you know, the right kind of paper, the right kind of magazine to use. Because as I said, like, you know, newspaper doesn't work. It's not going to work on a you know, something you print out of your computer.
Can I add something
Sure.
that I've found that I like better than this technique, because for the reasons that you're just saying, like, so what I don't like about this is that sort of what Mary was talking about before, is that you're using somebody else's image. And I think it's good for collage. I always just find like, oh, it's really cool. Like I was really excited about it. And then I was like, but I don't know how to use it. I'm not that excited about actually using it
Right.
for my work. But
Right.
And I have found some ways that I like it, but one way that I have found that I like better to do transfers is, and it's been the simplest way that I've found so far, is to, you can make copies of anything. Like you could make copies of a drawing that you did, or, you know, copies of whatever, an image from newspaper, or you could use newspaper, works well too. And you use gel medium.
Oh, that, yes.
The gel medium
Yes.
on the paper, and then you basically print the paper, and then you put gel medium on top and you let it sit for a few minutes, and then you have you keep an edge of it, you know, that you can pull up. And I've found that I like that better, and I like partly because of you can repeat it more. Like you could make multiple copies of whatever image that you like and experiment with repeating it easier than you can with the magazine transfer. I mean, it's different.
It's
but I
different.
found
That's right.
That's what I'm liking right now doing the most.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. And I will send people a video on how to do what you're talking about, because I have.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
That's true. I mean, what you're bringing up, I mean, that's true. You know, these techniques are fun unless you know, they're fun to know, but how are you going to use them? Ellen, you had your hand raised. Yeah.
Yeah, I when I did it by accident.
Yeah.
I was throwing away an AARP, I think, magazine. And so I just used that, and I used it with open because I wasn't reading. So, and it worked really, really well.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna say that you had a nice thick, a nice thin layer of ink, though. That seems to be what works well with it. Yeah. Well, good. So yeah, I mean, I invite you to try. That's a great idea. Yeah. So somebody, you don't need to even to buy a magazine. You could just look through your junk mail. And as long as the paper is fair, it seems to me that the fairly slick paper that works better with it, a high contrast image. But anyway, it's worth a try if you're interested, if you wanted to play with that. That's something fun and something a little bit new. So for homework, I would say let's keep working with composition. I think that it's you can never play with it enough. I think, that it might be interesting to, let's see. The challenge is, how do you make a very busy background work with something? Like, Katie, it would be interesting for you to take some of those store-bought, the commercial stencils, which I don't have a problem with at all. I think they're really fun to work with. I think they're really great to play with. You can, Michael's is a great source for them, and maybe you all have some on your own, or if you don't,
Yeah.
they're pretty easy to find.
Is it
Playtime in
Wednesday?
Arlington, has these commercial,
That would be
they're
Tuesday. That
they're
sounds okay.
decorative. And so the question is, how can you make them work? It's a really good challenge, what, knowing now that less tends to be more, especially when you're in a small area,
Oh,
how can you control, a kind of busyness to
yeah, it was Tuesday,
be-
28th. No, that's the 20th.
Oops, somebody's got their,
20th is Monday.
I'm gonna mute people here. How can we harness, the busyness to really make it work for us? So Mary's showing us something very busy here. Oh, what are you saying? Mary, I muted you. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Right. If I did this as a transfer, is it just gonna pick up the black, or will,
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it will pick up the black, but that
But
might be cool. Yeah, that might actually be a good one to work with.
okay, I'll try it.
Yeah. So try it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, our assignment is less is more.
Okay. All right.
And you've got lots of things to play with at this point. I would say keep printing, keep experimenting, keep going. Go off on a tangent if you're ready to do that. I'm would love it to see people really printing a good session of an hour would certainly have you make about 20 prints or 15 prints anyway, so that you're kind of rapidly going through a lot. Nothing lost in doing a lot of these things. And you may find that, by kind of pushing yourself to go more quickly, you end up with more possibilities. So, yeah, let's play with that. And I think we're kind of out of time here in terms of spending time to work to that today, but nonetheless, that's all good. Any questions or comments today? Any burning thoughts?
Well, just that less and more is kind of the life lesson too, isn't it?
Less is more. Less is more.
Less is more.
Less is more. I see it all
So many
much.
ways.
And that's so interesting, Kate. And since we have a little extra time, and can I wax philosophical for a second here?
Sure.
What I've noticed is, and this is true in some, artists who are out there in the world working too. A busyness sometimes covers up kind of a lack of confidence. So I wonder if you can think about that a bold statement that's simple can maybe suggest a courageousness and a boldness that might be lurking beneath a lot of overly busyness, because we're maybe not sure.
That's a very interesting point.
And can a busyness in life even, sort of be an evading of the big questions?
But I always had a tendency to go like very simple, and sometimes I think it's like maybe I'm avoiding something by doing that, like lurking underneath, because my tendency has been in the past to be much more minimalist.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe we're at different places at different times, right? I mean, I feel like
Exactly.
the COVID life has been very good for me in some ways because I can be very, 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 very busy all the time. And and I at least have been in my most recent life, and am enjoying and trying to keep hold of now a little less of that going all the time. You know.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. A lot of life lessons are true in art and in life. And that's just an interesting thing. So yeah, yeah, no right or wrong, no answer here, just kind of posing the question to think.
Yeah,
Okay,
and it
everybody.
brings a focus and some kind of intentionality that gets me to slow down instead of just piling one thing on another and staying busy with that pile,
Right.
of
Yes.
adding things, you know.
Yes, exactly. And when we put two images together, we also have to think about how they speak to one another. Do they belong together, or is the juxtaposition that of two weird things together making a statement, or are they simply at odds with each other? So that's another thing to think about, And then, because we've been working together for so long, a lot of us, had the 10-week class before, and some of you I've worked with earlier too. I think you can ask yourselves these questions about your work at this point. Like, how do I bring content into the work? Because of course, at first, we're so busy learning and enjoying that process. It is really important to just play and not let, content get in the way, because it can really stop you. But on the other hand, after a certain point, you may want to start, bringing some intentionality, as Katie used that word, such a good word, to what you're making, and think more about it. Sometimes you can find the answer in cropping. Sometimes you can find the answer in trying to be a little less complex. Sometimes you can find the answer in thinking about what is the focal point. So a lot of times the way we think about using composition can help us to, be a little bit more clear in expression.
And finding our voice.
And finding your voice, yeah.
And being able to remain playful while also intentional.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just paper. And it does go,
It's precious.
Yeah, it's not precious. That's right. So let go of preciousness. If you almost made it and you like it, but not, do it again and try it the way that you prefer it. Don't let that you just did it and be at the end of the day. Yeah, it's cut the part that you like out, place it on another sheet of paper, glue it down, and then do the work, right? Like, it's just paper. That's all it is. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for letting me wax
And
and wane.
wax eloquent.
Okay. See you all
Thanks,
next time.
everybody.
And I'll write down this assignment to you too.
And you'll send us the gel transfer that Sarah talked about? Okay, great.
I will.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you for mentioning that, Mary.